A young police officer, bruised, beaten, and left tied to a railroad track under the burning summer sky, with a freight train speeding toward him and no one around for miles. No one. Except a wounded German shepherd who refused to abandon him. That dog ran through the darkness, through pain, through fear, until she found the one person God meant to place on that road, a Navy SEAL on leave, carrying scars of her own, returning home for peace. And finding a miracle instead. What happened next wasn't luck. It wasn't chance. It was the kind of rescue you only see when courage meets destiny, and when heaven whispers, "Not today." Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. And if you believe God still sends miracles in unexpected ways, hit like, share this story, and subscribe for more tales of courage, faith, and the loyal hearts that walk beside us. The summer air hung thick over Cedar Creek, warm enough to blur the distant train tracks in a shimmering haze. Officer Ryan Cole, 32, moved silently through the wild grass at the edge of the abandoned industrial district, his breath steady despite the heat pressing against his skin. Ryan was the type of man built from quiet resilience. A broad-shouldered figure with a square jaw shadowed by a day's stubble, brown hair cut close for practicality, and eyes the color of storm clouds that always seemed to carry an unspoken weight. Those who knew him described him as steady, loyal, and painfully uncompromising with himself. That last trait had come from tragedy. 5 summers earlier, his younger brother had died in an overdose involving the same drug ring Ryan now hunted. Ever since, justice was no longer a badge he wore. It was a personal vow carved into bone. Beside him trotted Luna, his 3-year-old German shepherd, a sable-coated K9 with intelligent amber eyes and a build both elegant and powerful. She had a narrow white streak on her chest, an odd birthmark that Ryan always said made her look like she was wearing a medal. Luna was disciplined, sharp, and fiercely bonded to Ryan, sensing his moods with uncanny accuracy. Tonight, she was hyper-focused, her ears pricked, nose twitching as she followed the faint chemical scent associated with the drug labs these criminals used. Ryan whispered, "Easy, girl," not because Luna needed the reminder, but because he did. The case had dragged on for months, the criminals always one step ahead, and Ryan felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the fear of failing again, of letting another innocent life slip because he wasn't fast enough, smart enough, ruthless enough. Ahead, an old warehouse squatted near the railway line, a rusted skeleton of a building once used to store timber. Now dim lights flickered behind its broken windows. Ryan crouched, pulling binoculars from his vest. Through the cracked glass, he saw silhouettes moving. 3 men, tall, bulky, armed. The leader, a bald man with a jagged scar running from temple to jaw, barked orders with the impatience of someone accustomed to violence. Ryan had seen him before through grainy surveillance photos. Mason Briggs, known for handling problems with brutality instead of subtlety. Luna tensed. She sensed danger, not fear, but readiness, the kind of primal alertness bred into her lineage. Ryan touched her flank gently. "We're just watching, not tonight." But part of him already knew "not tonight" was a lie. A black pickup rolled into the warehouse lot. The driver threw open the back, revealing crates stamped with symbols Ryan instantly recognized. Firearm components trafficked from across state lines. This was bigger than the narcotics operation, and if they got away again, people would die. Ryan exhaled slowly. "We're going in for a closer look," he murmured. Luna's tail lowered, her body sliding into stealth mode. They circled toward the railway side of the warehouse, keeping to the shadows. The summer insects buzzed around them, and in the distance, a train horn echoed faintly through the night. Ryan felt sweat gathering under his collar, though not all of it was from the heat. Every instinct warned him to call for backup, but backup was 20 minutes away, and these men were loading the pickup right now, preparing to vanish. He couldn't let that happen. When he reached the side door, he eased it open an inch. Rust groaned softly. Too softly for Ryan's ear to catch, but loud enough for trained predators. A voice from inside snapped, "Who's there?" Before Ryan could react, the door was kicked from within. It slammed into him, knocking him backward. Luna barked, a sharp, defensive roar, and lunged at the first man, clamping onto his forearm. Chaos exploded. Another man struck Ryan across the jaw with the butt of a rifle, sending stars bursting across his vision. He hit the ground, gravel cutting into his cheek. Luna held her ground, teeth locked, growling with furious defiance. "Get the dog off!" someone yelled. A boot crashed into Luna's ribs, forcing her to release. She yelped and rolled aside, dazed but alive. Ryan tried to rise, but Mason Briggs grabbed him by the collar and punched his stomach, driving the air from his lungs. "Cop," Mason hissed. "You've been sniffing around too long." Ryan spat blood but glared back with stubborn defiance. He refused to give them fear. Rage burned in Mason's eyes, and he signaled the others, "Make him talk." They dragged Ryan inside, pinned him to a support beam, and beat him with brutal precision. Enough pain to break him, not enough to kill him. Luna limped toward the doorway, wanting to attack again, but another man hurled a metal wrench that struck the ground inches from her. Instinct forced her to retreat. Inside, Ryan's vision blurred. Every blow echoed with the memory of his brother's overdosed body. He clenched his jaw, refusing to give these monsters power over him. "Tie him up. We'll finish him on the tracks." Ryan was forced outside again. His hands were bound, his face bleeding, muscles trembling. They dragged him along the gravel, ignoring his groans. Luna watched from behind an overturned dumpster, shaking, her breath short, but her eyes stayed fixed on Ryan. She stayed silent, waiting, calculating. At the tracks, they lashed Ryan to the rails with thick industrial rope. The metal felt hot from the summer day, still radiating warmth into his bruised back. Mason crouched beside him. "Train comes in less than an hour. You'll save us the trouble of digging a grave." Ryan tried to speak, but only a hoarse whisper escaped. "You won't get away." Mason smirked and walked off. When the criminals disappeared into the warehouse again, Luna crept out from the shadows. Her sides rose and fell rapidly from pain and panic, but she forced herself to approach. Ryan blinked weakly, barely able to lift his head. "Luna, run." She nudged his shoulder, whining softly, but the rope was too thick. She tried biting it, pulling it, clawing it. Nothing worked. The train horn sounded in the distance. Luna froze, ears twitching toward the fading tracks. She looked at Ryan one last time, amber eyes full of anguish, and then she turned and sprinted toward the town lights. It was the hardest decision her loyal heart had ever made, but she knew the truth. Someone stronger had to save him. The railway stretched into the dusk like a blade of steel, still radiating the heat of the relentless summer day. The air felt heavy, sticky, suffocating in a way that made breathing itself feel like work. Officer Ryan Cole lay pinned against the scorching metal, his wrists bound behind the rail by industrial rope, thick enough that even the strength he once prided himself on felt meaningless. Sweat stung the cuts on his face, tracing small rivers along bruised skin, and his chest rose and fell in uneven, pained jerks. He could no longer tell where the tremble came from: fear, exhaustion, or the fading remnants of adrenaline. What surprised him most was not the terror of dying, but the quiet clarity settling inside him. Ryan had spent years imagining death in uniform, but never like this. He always pictured going down in a shootout, protecting someone, not helpless on a railway line like a nameless casualty of cruelty. As he struggled against the ropes, sharp pain shot through his ribs where the criminals had beaten him. He clenched his teeth, refusing to groan. A part of him still refused to give Mason Briggs the satisfaction of breaking him, not even now. But the deeper truth, the one he couldn't deny even as he tried to breathe through the pain, was that fear was beginning to take root. His heart hammered, too fast, too erratic. His thoughts blurred and sharpened in waves. He could already hear the faint vibration of steel far down the tracks, something deep and distant, like the first pulse of a coming storm. And storms never waited for anyone. Beside him, Luna, the 3-year-old German shepherd with her sable coat and amber eyes, circled frantically. Her ribs rose and fell quickly from earlier hits. Though injured, she moved with an urgent desperation only loyalty could create. Her normally disciplined demeanor was breaking apart. Her ears pinned back, tail low, paws constantly shifting, as if she could will time to slow by simply refusing to stay still. She lowered her head and tried biting the ropes binding Ryan, her sharp teeth scraping the coarse fibers. Each attempt tore off a few strands, but the rope was too thick, too tight, too cruel. Ryan winced as her teeth brushed the metal rail beneath him. "Luna, stop," he rasped, though his voice barely carried. "You'll hurt yourself." But Luna ignored him. She pressed her front paws against his shoulder, whining in a low, trembling sound he had only heard once before, the day her sibling died during early training. Back then, Ryan had held her through the night. She had learned grief through loss, and now she tasted it again. The horn sounded again, faint but unmistakable, an echo carried by hot summer wind. Luna froze, her head lifting sharply. Her ears pointed toward the sound, analyzing, calculating. German shepherds were bred for intelligence, but Luna's instincts were older, deeper, shaped by a bond that ran bone deep. She looked back at Ryan, and something shifted. In her gaze, the frantic desperation changed into a painful acceptance. Ryan felt his throat tighten. "Luna, don't leave," he whispered. He knew she didn't understand the words, but she understood the emotion. She understood everything through emotion. Luna pressed her muzzle to his cheek, leaving a faint smear of dirt and sweat. She licked the corner of his jaw, something she only did when she thought she might never see him again. Her body trembled with conflict. Stay and die with him, or leave him alone in the most vulnerable moment of his life? Dogs were loyal, yes, but survival instinct ran in their blood too. And Luna made her choice. She stepped away from the tracks, backing up slowly, her amber eyes locked onto Ryan's face as if memorizing it. She whined again, higher this time, heartbreakingly human. Ryan closed his eyes, fighting the burning in them. "It's okay," he whispered, knowing it wasn't. "Go." Luna turned. Her paws dug into the dirt, claws scraping the dry ground. Then she broke into a sprint, fast, powerful, fueled by terror and determination. She ran toward the distant lights of Cedar Creek, weaving through the tall grass, tail streaming behind her like a streak of sable lightning. Ryan watched until she vanished behind a dip in the land. The moment she disappeared, the crushing loneliness struck him like a physical blow. He had always believed dying alone would be the worst thing that could happen to him. But now he realized something far more painful, dying knowing his partner was out there, terrified, possibly running into more danger to save him. His breathing quickened. The distant hum on the tracks grew louder. His pulse synced with the faint vibrations under his spine. His thoughts spiraled in frantic bursts, memories of his brother, the promise he made at the graveside, the conversations he would never finish, the apologies he never voiced. He tried again to twist against the rope. It cut deeper. Blood warmed his fingertips. The metal rail beneath him vibrated harder now. The train was coming. Adrenaline surged one last time, a desperate instinct telling him to fight even when his body was failing. But the rope held, the metal held, the world held him down like an executioner's hand. Ryan exhaled shakily. For the first time, he felt the sharp edge of helplessness. Not just fear, but pure helplessness. And yet, beneath all of it, one small ember remained. Luna. If anyone could save him, it was her. He clung to that belief, even as the track trembled stronger, even as the wind shifted with the approaching force of the train. Luna was gone into the night, running faster than she ever had, running toward hope. And Ryan could only pray she found someone, anyone, before it was too late. The summer dusk settled over Cedar Creek like a warm blanket, turning the small town's quiet houses gold beneath the fading sun. Sarah Miller, recently returned Navy SEAL operative, walked alone along the gravel road leading toward the woods. She had come home for what she hoped would be a peaceful break, time to reset her mind, ease the weight of memories she rarely allowed to surface. At 28, Sarah carried herself with the calm strength of someone who had fought battles both inside and outside herself. She stood tall, around 5'10", with a lean, athletic build shaped by years of rigorous SEAL training. Her skin was sun-kissed from deployments overseas, her jawline sharp but softened by a quiet beauty. She had long ash-brown hair tied in a practical ponytail, strands occasionally escaping to brush against her cheek. Her eyes, a steely gray-green, held the hollow depth of someone who had seen too much too young. Those eyes rarely missed anything. They studied, assessed, predicted. If one looked closely, though, they could also see the lingering exhaustion she carried like a shadow. The kind earned from missions that didn't end cleanly, from teammates lost, from choices that carved themselves into memory. And yet, beneath all that, Sarah remained fiercely compassionate in ways the world seldom saw. She helped silently. She watched quietly. and she fought relentlessly for others. That part never left her. As she walked, she inhaled the warm, pine-scented breeze, reminding herself she was home, safe, far from the chaos, or so she believed. A sudden rustle tore through the underbrush. Sarah's instincts sharpened instantly. Her spine straightened, her hand drifted reflexively toward the pocket where she kept a folding knife. Then a shape burst from the shadows. A German shepherd, hurt, panting, wild-eyed, skidded across the dirt, nearly crashing into her legs. Sarah stepped back, startled but composed. "Whoa, easy!" The dog barked frantically, circling her legs, then tugging at the hem of her pants with desperate insistence. Sarah crouched slowly, letting the dog come into her space. Hey, what's wrong with you?" She noticed immediately the signs of struggle, bruising around the ribs, dirt smeared along her flank, and a slight limp in her back leg. But more alarming was the expression, those amber eyes filled with panic, urgency, pleading. This wasn't a lost dog. This was a dog trying to tell her something. Sarah rested a steadying hand on the shepherd's shoulder. The fur was warm and trembling under her palm. "Someone's hurt, aren't they?" The shepherd whined loudly, pressing her head into Sarah's hand, then jolting away, taking a few steps toward the forest before whipping around to see if Sarah followed. The message couldn't be clearer. "Okay," Sarah breathed, rising to her feet in one swift motion. "Lead me." Luna, because that name seemed to fit her without ever needing to be spoken, took off, limping but fast. Sarah sprinted behind her, boots striking the dirt with practiced efficiency. As branches whipped past her arms, Sarah's mind shifted into mission mode. Her pulse steadied, her breaths became controlled, her focus narrowed to a single objective. Whoever this dog belonged to was hurt and running out of time. Luna led her down a slope toward the railway line, the metal rails glowing faintly in the evening light. The distant rumble of a train vibrated through the earth like an omen. Sarah's stomach dropped. "No," she whispered, already sprinting faster. When she reached the tracks, the scene hit her like a blow to the chest. A man, brutally beaten, bloodied, barely conscious, was bound to the rail. He was tall, athletic, with dark hair matted with sweat and dirt, dressed in the torn uniform shirt of a police officer. Even unconscious, there was a stubbornness in his features that spoke of someone who never gave up, even when he should have. His chest rose shallowly. Time was running out. A surge of icy clarity shot through Sarah. She dropped to her knees beside him, instantly assessing the knots. Thick rope, industrial, tight, expertly pulled. Someone had tied him down with intent to kill. The rumble of the train grew louder. 10 minutes? Less? She didn't have time to guess. "Hang on," she muttered, voice low but firm. "I've got you." She flicked open her knife and sawed through the rope with fast, practiced movements. Luna paced in circles, whining louder as the tracks trembled underfoot. "It's okay, girl," Sarah said through gritted teeth. "Stay sharp." The last rope snapped. She pulled the officer, Ryan, according to the faint name patch still barely visible on his shirt, up by his arms, bracing his weight against her body. He groaned in pain, head lolling against her shoulder. "You're all right," she assured him, though she wasn't sure he heard. The ground began shaking harder. The train horn screamed in the distance, final, deafening, merciless. Sarah gathered Ryan in her arms with the strength of someone used to hauling wounded teammates out of combat zones. She dragged him off the track, stumbling down the embankment just as the massive locomotive thundered past behind them. The sheer force of it sent a blast of hot wind slamming against her back, nearly knocking her off balance. Luna barked sharply, startled but relieved. Sarah gently lowered Ryan onto the grass, heart still pounding. She checked his pulse, weak but steady. His breathing was shallow but present. She scanned his injuries with the precision of a trained combat medic. Likely cracked ribs, dehydration, multiple contusions, and a probable concussion. He needed help soon, but he was alive. She exhaled slowly, feeling the adrenaline ebb just enough for the emotional weight to hit. She had saved him by seconds, maybe less. Luna crawled to Ryan's side and nudged his hand gently, her whines soft and shaking. Sarah watched the dog's devotion with a rare softness in her eyes. "You did good," she whispered. "You brought me right on time." Then she shifted her gaze to Ryan's battered form, determination returning like steel forming under fire. "You're safe now," she murmured. "I've got you. I'm not letting anything happen to you tonight." And under the fading summer sky, she began the steady work of treating his wounds, calm, methodical, unshakable. A soldier back on the battlefield, even on the night she swore she had left it behind. The morning heat settled heavily beneath the forest canopy, turning every breath into a warm, damp pull of air. Ryan Cole came to slowly, as if rising through layers of darkness. His eyelids felt like sandpaper as he blinked against rays of sunlight piercing through the leaves above. Every inch of his body ached, not one sharp pain, but a chorus of dull, bruising pulses that reminded him he'd come far too close to dying. For a moment he didn't know where he was. The last clear memory was the roar of the approaching train, then being lifted, dragged, saved. His eyes adjusted and he saw Sarah Miller crouched a few feet away, her back turned as she cleaned the blade of her folding knife against a patch of grass. Even in stillness, her presence radiated strength. She sat with her legs planted firmly, posture alert despite exhaustion. Her ash-brown ponytail hung loosely down her back, a few rebellious strands sticking to the sweat on her sun-warmed skin. She looked like someone who never allowed herself to relax, not completely. Trauma had shaped her into a vigilant guardian long before this night. Luna lay pressed against Ryan's side, her warm body curled protectively along his ribs. When Ryan stirred, Luna's ears shot upward, and she nuzzled his arm with frantic relief. "Hey, girl," he whispered, lifting a hand to stroke her head. The simple act made pain flare through his shoulder, but the emotional ache, knowing how terrified she must have been, hurt far more. Sarah turned at the sound of his voice. Her gray-green eyes softened just slightly, though the tension in them didn't leave. "You're awake," she said, voice low but steady. "Good. I wasn't sure how long you'd be out." Ryan tried sitting up, grimacing as his muscles protested. Sarah moved to support him without hesitation, sliding an arm behind his back with the efficiency of someone who had done this countless times under far worse circumstances. "Careful," she warned. "You've got at least 2 cracked ribs, maybe more, and a concussion." Ryan's dry, cracked lips twitched. "Feels like it," he admitted. Sarah handed him a canteen. He drank, letting the cool water cut through the desert of his throat. A few minutes passed in silence, Luna's soft panting, birds overhead, the distant hum of cicadas deepening the oppressive summer atmosphere. Eventually, Sarah asked, "Why were you tied to the tracks?" Her voice was blunt, direct, the voice of someone who wanted facts, not comfort. Ryan drew a shaky breath. He had hoped to explain this to backup, to someone equipped, someone with resources. Instead, he had a single SEAL on leave and his wounded but loyal dog. But as his eyes met Sarah's, he saw something that steadied him. Resolve. Not pity, not fear, resolve. "I was tracking a drug trafficking operation," he began. Sarah nodded for him to continue. "They've been operating out of Cedar Creek for years, hidden, careful, using the old warehouse by the tracks as a front." His jaw clenched involuntarily as memories flooded back, the crates, the armed guards, the cruelty. "I collected enough evidence to get them shut down. Or, I thought I did," he swallowed, grimacing against the pain. "But they found out. They ambushed me, beat me, and tied me down to let the train finish the job." Sarah's eyes hardened. In their depths, something fierce sparked, something that looked like a volcano waking. But Ryan wasn't done. His voice grew quieter, trembling at the edges as he revealed the part that haunted him the most. "There's more. In the basement. They're keeping people." Sarah froze. "People?" "Women. Kids," Ryan forced out. "Trafficking victims. They're not just running drugs. They're moving human cargo out of Cedar Creek. They were planning a shipment, tonight or tomorrow." Sarah's jaw flexed. Her expression darkened into a shadowed mixture of rage and focus. She stood, pacing once, hands on her hips. The sunlight filtered through branches and traced the outline of her lean, muscular form, every part of her built for endurance, for battle, for confrontation. "You're telling me," she said slowly, "there are innocent people, children, in that warehouse?" Ryan nodded. Luna whimpered softly, as if echoing the weight of the confession. Sarah inhaled deeply, chest rising with controlled fury. "If they did that to you," she said, voice deliberately calm, "they'll do worse to people who can't fight back." Ryan saw something shift inside her, an instinct buried beneath years of training. She wasn't just reacting as a soldier, she was reacting as someone who refused to stand by while the vulnerable suffered. Sarah turned sharply toward him. "I'm helping you." Ryan blinked, stunned. He had expected her to call for backup, maybe to walk him to safety. Not this. "Sarah, you don't have to." "I'm not doing it for you," she cut in, though her eyes softened right after. "I'm doing it because monsters don't get to walk free in my town." She grabbed her backpack, slinging it over one shoulder. "If you're able to move, I need you. Luna, too." Luna's ears perked up, tail swishing lightly, as if the dog already accepted the mission. Ryan started to push himself upright. Pain screamed through his ribs, but he gritted his teeth and rose. "I'm in," he said quietly. "They're not getting away again." Sarah nodded. "Good, here's the plan." Her tactical mind clicked into gear, her tone shifting into controlled command. "Luna will track scent to pinpoint the warehouse entry." The shepherd barked once, determined. "You," she said to Ryan, "will take a flanking position and provide close-range cover. Sniper if possible. Stay hidden. Stay sharp." Ryan nodded again, pain twisting his features but not his resolve. "And you?" Sarah tightened her knife sheath and adjusted. Her boots. "I'm going through the side entrance. Stealth, quick takedowns. No alerts." The heat around them pulsed with heavy summer intensity, but their shared determination burned hotter. Together, injured officer, hardened SEAL, and loyal shepherd, they stepped back onto the narrow forest path, heading toward the place where darkness waited. None of them hesitated, not even once. The night clung to the air like thick velvet, hot and unmoving, carrying the faint hum of summer insects and the distant rumble of highway traffic. But beneath that ordinary southern heat was a tension sharp enough to slice through breath itself. Luna led the way through the forest's shadows, her nose low, her stride purposeful, despite the ache still hidden in her ribs. The 3-year-old German shepherd moved with renewed strength, every sense sharpened by the knowledge that the lives of her partner and others depended on her. Her amber eyes flicked back every few steps, checking that Sarah Miller and Ryan Cole followed close behind. Ryan, though moving slower than usual, kept pace with every bit of grit left in him. His ribs screamed, his muscles burned, and his vision blurred at the corners, but he pushed forward anyway. That was his nature, stubborn, determined, almost self-destructive in his refusal to quit, shaped by the guilt of losing his brother and the fear of failing another innocent life. His jaw remained clenched, sweat rolling along the bruises marking his cheekbone. Even in pain, his body carried the familiar authority of a trained officer, shoulders square, eyes scanning, mind calculating. Sarah, walking slightly ahead of him, looked like she had stepped out of the darkness itself. Her lean, athletic frame, tall, taut, sculpted by years of SEAL missions, moved with precision and quiet fury. Her ash-brown ponytail swung against the back of her neck, soaked with sweat, and her steel-gray eyes glinted with a cold determination that came only when her moral compass locked onto a target. She had treated wounds like Ryan's in combat zones. She had dragged men larger than him across desert sands. But tonight felt different, heavier. Something deep within her refused to let this small town become another place where evil thrived. Not on her watch. When Luna suddenly stopped and lowered herself to the ground, Sarah lifted a fist, signaling halt. Ryan exhaled a shaky breath and knelt beside a tree, trying not to groan. Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. "We're close." The warehouse loomed ahead, its rusted metal frame glowing faintly under a flickering overhead bulb. 2 guards stood outside, hulking men with sleeveless shirts, tattoos snaking down muscled arms, and the careless confidence of people who believed no one could touch them. Sarah observed everything, their stance, their weapons, the rhythm of their patrol steps. She studied people with the precision of a surgeon and the ruthlessness of a soldier. "Ryan," she murmured, leaning close, "you take the north corner, stay hidden. Take out anyone who runs." Ryan nodded, tightening his grip on the firearm she had returned to him earlier. He steadied himself, breathing through the pain. "I can cover you." Sarah touched his shoulder, not softly but firmly. "You're injured, not broken. You're still one hell of a cop." The words settled something. Inside him, quieting the storm of self-doubt he had carried since the night he was beaten. Sarah slipped into the darkness, her body almost dissolving into shadow as she circled the warehouse. Ryan moved in the opposite direction, positioning himself behind a pile of old pallets. Luna stayed beside him until Sarah gave a sharp click of her tongue, a command that sent the dog creeping toward the warehouse's far side. Then it began. Sarah struck first. She emerged behind one guard in an instant, arm hooking around his neck, dragging him backward with swift, silent force until he collapsed unconscious. The second guard turned, confusion flashing across his face, just before Sarah lunged forward, elbow slamming into his jaw. He hit the ground like a felled tree. Her movements were fluid, efficient, almost elegant in their severity. Inside, the warehouse contained a handful of criminals, men and women with faces hardened by greed and violence. They never stood a chance. Sarah broke through the side door like a ghost slipping through a crack, her blade catching the dim light as she moved between crates. Her breath stayed measured, her motions silent. One by one, she incapacitated them, disarming a rifle, kicking a knee sideways, delivering a swift blow to a throat. Ryan, from his position, handled the ones who tried to escape. A man sprinted from the back entrance, but Ryan stepped out with his gun raised, eyes fierce. "Don't," he warned, voice low but absolute. The criminal froze. Another tried to rush Ryan, but Luna intercepted, knocking the man flat with a snarl that echoed through the night. Then the moment everything hinged on, Mason Briggs, the scarred leader, burst through the warehouse door with a pistol raised. His eyes locked on Sarah. Rage and fear twisted his face. "You don't know who you're messing with, girl," he spat. Sarah didn't flinch. "I know exactly what you are." Mason aimed at her chest, but Luna was already moving. The shepherd leapt, clamping her jaws onto Mason's forearm, twisting him off balance. He fired once, the bullet sparking off the metal beam above Sarah's head. She ducked, charged forward, and delivered a crushing strike to Mason's jaw. He fell, Luna still gripping his arm until Sarah gave the release command. With Mason down, the fight ended. FBI sirens wailed in the distance, answers to the call Ryan had managed to get out earlier. Agents poured in minutes later, storming the warehouse and finding the hidden victims in the cellar, terrified but alive. A week passed. Cedar Creek finally breathed again. Ryan stood in front of the station, bruises faded to yellow, ribs healing. Luna, fully recovered, leaned against his leg. Sarah approached in civilian clothes, jeans, boots, hair down for once. There was a softness to her now, a warmth hidden beneath the steel. "If you hadn't shown up," Ryan began. Sarah gave a small smile. "If your dog hadn't dragged me there, neither of us would be talking right now." She crouched to scratch Luna behind the ears. "She's the real hero." Luna licked Sarah's hand, tail wagging as if she understood every word. Sarah stood and shouldered her backpack. "I'm heading back to the unit tomorrow, but—" She glanced at Ryan, eyes warmer than before. "I'll be back. Cedar Creek isn't getting rid of me that easily." Ryan watched her walk away under the blazing summer sun, grateful for the strange, fierce, unexpected alliance that had saved his life, and many others. That summer, in the sweltering heat of Cedar Creek, a man was saved, a criminal empire ended, and an unbreakable bond between a cop, a soldier, and a dog was forged forever. Sometimes, the greatest miracles don't arrive with thunder or blinding light. Sometimes, they come on 4 legs, with a wagging tail, or in the form of a stranger who showed up at the exact moment we needed them most. That night in Cedar Creek, fate moved quietly. A brave officer survived, innocent lives were saved, and a bond was forged between a man, a warrior, and a loyal German shepherd. A bond strong enough to remind us that God's protection often appears in unexpected ways. Maybe you've felt it in your own life. A moment you almost gave up, but someone showed up. A door closed, only so another could open. A danger passed, though you never understood why. Those are the quiet fingerprints of a loving God, guiding, shielding, watching over us, even when we feel alone. And tonight, as we close this story, I pray a simple prayer for you. May God's grace surround you. May His angels walk beside you. And may every dark road you face be lit by a miracle you didn't expect, just like the one that saved Ryan. If this story touched your heart, please share your thoughts in the comments. I love reading where you're watching from, like the video if you believe miracles still happen. Share this story with someone who needs hope tonight. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of faith, courage, and the gentle ways God reminds us He's still here. May God bless you, your family, and every step ahead of you. And may He place a loyal guardian, like Luna, in your life when you need it most.